First of all, I'd just like to say this is really cool.
Look, can we just talk about something else, please?
Since it's already quiet, I guess we might as well start the team meeting.
Greetings to you, wherever you're listening or watching. This is episode 5, and we're back for another edition of the Little Big Fantasy League podcast. In last week's episode, we chatted about some MLB contract extensions, some top and worst performers in fantasy, and we heard from Carter in the first ever segment of Orange's Orioles Outlook, a smashing hit, kind of like the ones that the Smashing Pumpkins have had over the years. This week, we take another look at our fantasy league, the matchups from last week, as well as the standings, and we'll also discuss some early season surprises and recent events surrounding fan interference. And he may not be with us right now, but he'll be joining us for the second half of this episode. Be sure to stay tuned for Joe's special feature segment, Joe's RedHot Takes, sponsored by Frank's RedHot Sunflower Seeds by David. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Way to go, Rory.
Way to go, Rory. Capturing his first ever
Way to go, Rory.
Masters
Represent the
championship.
Irish nation.
All right,
Welcome
shall we?
to the new age. To the new age.
Without a doubt. All right, shall we get into the week 2 matchups?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, so taking a look at the leaderboard here at Augusta. I know I had a good week from a scoring standpoint, but ended up losing to Walt, the high point getter, with a clean 910.80 for the week. Actually kind of just blew everybody out of the water. And you look at the top 3 finishers of this week, Walt in first, I took second, and third place was Joe, Kerry Bonds. And you look at the point gaps between those 3 teams, each roughly 100, give or take, 10 to 15 point gaps. It looked like pretty much everyone else kind of struggled a little bit from a scoring standpoint this past week. JD, analysis on picking up your second victory against Otani's interpreters and Cade.
Yeah, I squeaked by with the dub. I actually early on in the week, I actually forgot to start Jose Barrios, and so that kind of made me nervous because he got me like 20 points and then I lost. I was like worried about losing the rest of the game, but yeah, we squeaked it out and figured that we just, I don't know, pull it off. So
Yeah, not a bad win for you there. All right, Carter picking up his first win against John with a 706.70. Looked like you scored a little bit more than what was projected. Picking up that first win has to be a pretty good feeling.
Yeah, for sure, especially after that brutal defeat the first week there. But no, it felt good. I mean, me and John were kind of talking back and forth over text throughout the week, and I personally, like, I kept telling him, like, I always felt like it was it was nail biting for me. I thought it was extremely close right up to the end there on Sunday evening. I know he was always behind points, but I saw that he had some really good starters going. He had like 3 or 4 starters going on Sunday, and I barely had anything. And so I knew if my bats went dead there, that he could easily make up that 100 points if those starters did well, including, if his bats did well on that Saturday and Sunday. So throughout the week, I was a little worried because I had quite a few matchups last season where I thought I had a comfortable lead, and then all of a sudden the weekend gets there, then that lead is just completely vanishes and I lose the week. So yeah, I always thought he was on my tail through that whole matchup. But thankfully, yeah, I was able to get that first win there over John. Really, I feel like our teams were really even, other than James Wood kind of went crazy there. He got me over 100 fantasy points. Yeah, he just went wild this week. So that was really the difference maker there. But if James Wood didn't put up those numbers, I think it would be an extremely close matchup for between the two of us.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring up James Wood too. I mean, I look at some past matchups that I've had even, and I feel like you have to have one or two guys that really have a strong performance, like an 100-point week, in your case, in James Wood. I know for me this past week it was Cole Reagans. He ended up with a 94.3, which was two starts only for him. And
Wow.
like, I mean, he just went crazy. I was happy with Jackson Churio, who put up over 81 points. And then for a struggling team that we'll talk about a little bit later, it was nice to see Ozzy Albies contribute a little bit more. He had a pretty solid week with just under 70 points there. But any players that stood out for you this week, JD, in your matchup?
Um, yeah, looking back, Hunter Greene had a good week for me for sure. He's been putting up great numbers. Everyone else was kind of middle of the road, and it, was just enough to win it. Cal Raleigh went off this week. He had like 3 or 4 straight games with a homer or something like that, and he became like the franchise leader in homers for the Mariners like this past week. So that was pretty cool. So those are definitely two guys of note. Um, and also just say for John, it like also kind of sucks that Jackson Holiday had like 0 points, I think, the past week for him too. So that probably helped with Carter's dub a little bit.
At, at
But
least
it happens to all of
my
us. Like I know,
my sorry,
go
my
ahead.
second baseman Matt McLean, he was on the aisle the whole time. So thankfully
Good
both
point.
of our second
Yeah,
basemen gave us 0 points
yeah,
with that matchup.
dude. Dude, Santander for me, he hadn't hit a homer all year, and then I bench him, and then he hits a homer, and it's like, what? What's the timing of that?
Yeah, I
That's the
But
saw
I
worst.
had to jinx him, I guess. I
he
don't
hit a
know.
homer back when he came back to Camden Yards there. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. I should have totally been paying attention to that, but I wasn't. So,
Yeah, and it's hard to keep track of what pitchers they're going to face off against. I mean, how much do you guys play into the
mhm.
daily projections at all? Like sometimes it'll show a lower projection for somebody like on my team, like Bryson Stott. He'll be projected for like a 2.6 or like not much at all when he's facing off against a lefty, but when he's going against a righty, he's projected for like somewhere between 7 and 8. So how much do you guys read into those daily projections when setting your lineups? And how difficult is it when you have multiple options on your bench with batters to really decide who to play on any given day?
Yeah, I for the projections that the Yahoo Fantasy app gives, I find those to be pretty inaccurate, at least in my case. And what I oftentimes do is I'll just look at like the probable pitchers on like the MLB website each day. And then I look at, if this player is going up against, an ace of a pitcher, then I might contemplate, sitting that batter compared to someone else that's going against a pitcher with like a 4.5 ERA or something, so that's how I look at the probable pitchers each day and kind of judge based off that with the batters I bench.
Yeah, no, I've done that a few times. Sometimes it's just a roll of the die for me. I'll just ride the hot hand, If someone's slumping, then I don't know. Sometimes I don't put as much thought into it. Sometimes I do. So it's just kind of like how much time I have and energy to do the extra research. But yeah, I mean, you could probably get into the nitty-gritty things, but then I just end up overthinking it anyway. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the varying strategies throughout the league too. We talked about JD's secret strategy of not having any like true relief pitchers. We talked about that last week. If you
Very.
missed last week's episode, go back and watch episode 4, which was a doozy. But you see a lot of teams that'll have like 4 to 5 bench bats. And I know, like, personally for me, I'm usually somewhere between that 1 to 2 range. I don't want to have too many options because I hate the feeling of regretting sitting somebody after they have a good day. Now, at the same time, like, I'm in a situation right now where Cody Bellinger has been day to day a few days, and I don't have another first baseman to put in to replace him. So I'm kind of like, well, do I use an ad this week? And that's what I was torn on this morning. I saw that John picked up Ben
Yeah,
Rice, who was
that was
the
a
best
huge pickup.
first baseman left on the market. So it really is interesting to see the different strategies that our teams have. And some guys have, yeah, 5 to 6 bench bats, and others like to really stock up on pitching.
Yeah, it is interesting. I know I was just taking a
Yeah.
little peek at some of the teams today while I was at work, and yeah, there's some teams that have like no pitchers on their bench. It's just straight 5 batters on their bench, you know. So it is a little interesting. Where you, Leo, you're more, I'd say more a little more pitcher heavy. So yeah, it is interesting, and then how that plays out towards those end scores there with the matchups.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, week to week, it can really depend on how it goes.
Yeah, you got to read the matchup. You got to read just the current state of your roster too. I know JD, your team in particular, has struggled with a lot of injuries, so kind of filling up those IL spots, I'm sure, has been pretty difficult for you.
Very much. It's a lot of fun. Second half of the year will be very interesting because that's like when they're all supposed to come back. So we're gonna see if we can stay healthy until then. But yeah,
All right, let's take a
it'll be
quick peek
interesting.
at the oh yeah, for sure. Let's take a quick peek at the week 2 standings. In first place, we've got bye week, which is Walt. He's been tremendous, leading the entire league in points right now. Joe's team in second, also staying undefeated with his win, and JD is in third. Those are the 3 top teams from a win-loss record standpoint. Then rounding it out here with the final 6 teams. All of these following teams are 1-1. The Lou Collins Heartthrobbers, that's my team. John's team, the Mariners, Ristopia, and which is Carter, and Schwellenbach Enthusiast, which is Kyle. So all those teams are currently 500. And then the bottom 3 here, we've got Otani's Interpreters with Cade, the Justice League is Justice, and then Tom with the Barrel Aged Rye Guys has struggled a little bit early on. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I know for me personally, a little bit frustrating to be sitting at 1-1 when you look at the, points scored. I know JD, your team last year was kind of in that boat all year round where consistently you're putting up a lot of points, but you didn't necessarily finish with maybe the record that you should have based on how many points you scored. And I think it really is interesting when you're looking at each particular week, each particular matchup, and you're trying to figure out like, do I have enough pitchers to throw this week to beat this certain opponent? So there's so many different challenges, I think, with the kind of head-to-head style. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel like sometimes teams just get super unlucky. I'm sure that's what happened a lot with JD last year because yeah, he had just ton of points. It was I think a lot of it was just straight unlucky with facing probably teams that had just pitcher stats starting at the very beginning of the week, and then they had second starts at the end of the week. And sometimes you just face teams like that where they just have a tremendous amount of two-start pitchers where if you don't have that on your team, it can be really hard to get numbers that oppose someone's team like that. Just because, yeah, if they have that many two-star pitchers, then it's very, very difficult to come back from that.
Thanks a lot, Walt, if you're listening.
think you'll be just fine, Leo. I think you'll be just fine. Probably gonna be your one loss for the next 8 weeks or something.
Yeah,
I
I think so.
What I had to tell
think you'll
myself
be
this
okay.
morning. I know when I was playing the market this morning and just like looking
How
around,
will
I
I
was
ever
like,
come back from this?
I know. I was looking at the market this morning. I was like, no, don't waste one of your ads this week. Like I used two last week. I broke my own rule in hopes that I could possibly beat Walt, knowing that I would probably need like a crazy performance and for all of his pitchers on Sunday to put up like a zero or a negative. And of course it didn't happen, but I took my chances. So
Yeah,
I know. Um,
yeah.
I with seeing Tom's team at the bottom there, I definitely don't think that's gonna stay that way with how active he's been. Adding free agents, I think he's definitely gonna rise up uh, with the team ranks there for sure, just because how
I
active
like the
he's been
Abreu
trying to.
ad for sure.
Yeah, yeah, that was a really good ad.
yeah, I think you're right there. And I know he was on vacation. Shout out to Tom. He was in Atlanta, got to catch the Braves and Phillies the other night, and the
Nice.
Phillies ended up winning that game. I think the final was 5-4, but I think he was a little bit more preoccupied this week with what was going on there. He was not only traveling for leisure, but a little bit for work there as well. And so I noticed that he had like a couple of players that went on the IL that he didn't move to the IL right away. And I think that may have hurt him in his matchup, which was against Kyle. So I think he'll come around for sure. He was projected at 684 and finished with 419. So I imagine that he maybe had a couple of pitchers that were still sitting on his bench instead of being in his starting lineup.
Yeah, watching major games like that in person is more important than the fantasy app for sure. That's pretty cool.
All right, let's move on to our next topic here. It's a pretty hot topic, maybe not quite as hot as Joe's hot takes will be a little bit later on in the episode, but fan interference. So let's just get right into the first story here. So looking at last Tuesday, it was the day after we filmed last week, episode 4. Kyron Paris, who was picked up by JD, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Kyron Paris sends a deep drive into left center field, and Christopher Morel of the Rays has a chance to make a leaping catch at the wall to rob a home run, and in swoops the Hawk himself, ball hawk Zach Hample, the notorious collector of over 12,000 baseballs. So initially, it's ruled a home run. The Rays ask for it to go to review. The camera pans to Zach Hample recording himself on the scoreboard, and he's got his GoPro strapped to his head. And the call ends up getting confirmed as a home run. Kind of a wild scene. I know that Carter has been itching to talk about this topic in particular. So, Carter, let's get your thoughts right off the bat here.
Well, that specific moment really, really frustrated me because Shane Boswell, the Wizard himself, was pitching
You're a
that night,
wizard,
and I have
Harry.
him on my roster, and it would have been just an incredible outing for him if it wasn't for Zach Hample catching catching that ball. So, and I looked at multiple angles of where that ball was going, and it definitely looked like Morale was going to catch it. In my opinion, I know some people argued against that on social media, but I really thought it looked like to me he was going to catch that ball, and yeah, Zach Hample stole it from him. So yeah, get that guy banned out of the get that guy banned. Not a big fan of him. I know a lot of people find him annoying and stuff, and I don't know if it's true, but I've heard like rumors he's like push kids out of the way and stuff to catch balls, and I know there was like that what was that famous baseball player like A-Rod's 3000th hit or something that he caught, and it took like weeks of social media pressure for him, I think, to sort of give it back. So uh, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of him personally, and I guess that sort of ties into the whole conversation. I know we'll talk about a little more after specifically Zach Hample, but just when balls kind of get on the edge of in the audience or sort of in play, the decisions that are made. Um, but yeah, I think he's a bit of a frustrating person.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you there. I know Twitter wasn't happy, and so that was fun to watch play out. I think the underrated element of this specific play was poor Christopher Morel. He had a pretty rough day. Almost robs a homer, and then I think either before that or after that, he like pimped a ball that he hit that ended up not being a homer, and it was just like totally embarrassing. And so that was kind of funny. I think he got like tossed either that game or the next game or something. I can't remember. So former 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 player of mine on my team. Glad he's not on my team this year. But yeah, Christopher Morel, Zach Hample. He's just giving it to him more, I guess. I don't know. But
Yeah, it was a tough one. I mean, gosh, it's so hard because I feel like we didn't get maybe the best possible camera angle to really see like did he actually like reach over the wall to grab it? I think Merril would have definitely had a chance to catch the ball, and we'll get into like the actual MLB rule once we talk about the next incident, but one thing that I thought was really interesting when you go back and watch the video is there was a lady to his left, and if he doesn't catch that ball, I don't think anybody has made this argument that I've seen yet. If he doesn't catch that ball, this lady probably gets smacked somewhere in the hands, maybe her torso. I mean, at the end of the day, like you can have your opinion on Zach Campbell, but I don't know. It's tough. To me, it doesn't look like he really reached over the wall to interfere with it. But at the same time, like everybody had their own motive in this situation, I think is like the huge takeaway. Like Shane Baz is just trying to get an out. Like Christopher Morel just trying to get an out. Kyron Paris just trying to hit a home run. Zach Hample, he's just trying to get the ball. This has become essentially his career. He has made himself arguably the most famous baseball fan to ever live. And he's done so by promoting himself through YouTube, by being somewhat skilled at being able to acquire batting practice balls, game balls. Like for me, as somebody that also enjoys collecting and a slight ball hawk, I guess myself, I do have some respect for Hample, but I know that there has been a few incidents that have been questionable in the past. So, on this particular one, I don't think there was interference. I think they ended up making the right call. I know that that's a pretty controversial take, but it's one that I'm willing to defend.
Interesting, Leo. Interesting.
all right, Carter, have at him.
Let's go. Skip and Shannon. Let's go. Undisputed.
No, I guess yeah, like you said, we'll probably talk about it a little more here, but at the end of the day, it comes back to what the MLB rules as what's fair or not. And I think you're right. Like I think it was like over the fence there into the crowd, and so technically it was fair for Zach Hample to get it. I think that's sort of the rules there, but maybe it comes down to. I mean, maybe it comes down to tweaking those rules a little bit. I'm not sure.
If it's
And
anybody, I was going to say, if it's anybody but Hample, I argue that we might not even be having this particular conversation on this topic.
yeah, also
A good point.
there's I don't know. You guys would know a lot better than me, but don't most MLB stadiums have like cameras like along the whole place that kind of tried to show
The
if the
minor league
balls.
park too. Yeah, we didn't take that into. Yeah,
Yeah, because the
yeah.
two
There's
minor
not
league
as
parks
many
like the
camera angles.
no, like I think with the Rays and the Athletics, like they don't
Did
have
not think about that.
those capabilities. Yeah.
It's a great point.
Good point.
All right, this one gets my blood boiling a little bit more than the first one. So moving on to Saturday, we talked about Yainer Diaz. He had some struggles to start the season for Joe's team, Kerry Bonds. We've got Yainer Diaz at the plate for Houston. He hits the ball towards the right field line. Future Hall of Famer Mike Trout ranges over against the wall. He makes the catch. The ball is in his glove. That is undisputed. Skip and Shannon right there. And an Astros fan rips the ball right out of his glove. Angels announcer, quote, that should be an out. That's got to be an out. He literally took it right out of his glove. Now, on the other side of it, when the Astros announcers saw this in live time, the play-by-play guy said, quote, Trout's claiming interference, but that is in the stands. That is not his ball. That's a fan's ball. He can argue all he wants, but that is a fan's right. But then they slow it down, they see the replay, and credit to the Astros announcers, they reverse their opinion upon seeing that slow-mo. So, what was the play actually ruled? Well, it was ruled a foul ball, and the play did not go to video review. Initial thoughts on this one, guys?
Absolutely ridiculous that didn't get video reviewed. That, I mean, it just doesn't make sense at all. And I mean, when you have people that do this, I don't know if this guy got kicked out or not, but personally, I think he should be banned because I mean, you can potentially injure a player, like trying to take a ball out of their glove and stuff that aggressively, So yeah, I just thought it was horrible all around.
Yeah. So there was a video actually of him like after the game talking to Trout, and you can kind of see in the video in the original play, like he like is like remorseful, like halfway through the act almost. Like he's like almost like trying to give the ball back in like a weird way. He's like, "What did I do?" Like he like took it out, but then he like it was almost like reaching it back towards him and would just like I don't know what happened there, but he was very remorseful from like the video after the game, and he seemed to like Trout seemed to be understanding. So I don't know. It's just like one of those weird things. Like it happened. The other extreme examples with was it Mookie in the Yankees in the playoffs?
Yep.
Um, that's an extreme example. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. Like you need to review. You need to get the play right. Like the umps need to intervene and just like, okay, this needs to be like they need to make the call. And I don't know, you know, it's just one of those. It depends on the ruling though too, and like based off of the rule, like it's supposed. Is it like a dead ball when it fan interference, right?
I mean,
So
here,
then they have to. I don't know.
yeah, here's the quote directly from the crew chief
Let's
of
go into the
this.
rule because yeah,
Yeah. Here's a quote from the crew chief of that game. The first base umpire, Alan Porter, was the crew chief of that game on Saturday. Quote, the fly ball was in the stands. It was not over the field of play. Once the ball is outside of the field of play, the fielder goes into the stands at his own risk. And that means, in this case, his glove. Continuing his quote, so the ball being touched by the fan does not create spectator interference at that point, which to me is crazy. Like, yes, I get that he reaches his glove into the stands, but like it's so evident that like he makes the catch. To me, he has possession and the guy just reaches in and grabs it. And like great on Trout, awesome gesture, I think at the
yeah,
end, like bringing his son, the Astros fan's son, a signed bat, and he even signed that very ball as well. Like he handled it better than probably anybody else would in the game. Like Hall of Fame resume from not just like his career accolades, but also just the way that he's carried himself throughout his career. But I really think that they made the wrong call on this play. Like to me, it's just it's so evident that that has to be a catch, and to me there has to be some sort of rule change, maybe specifically made as a result of this situation. I mean, I know JD, you brought up the World Series incident. You think back to the Cubs in the early 2000s. I want to say it was '03 with the Steve Bartman incident. A lot of fans argued that they probably would have won that game and advanced in the postseason there. So, like the implications are so high with something like this, whether it's a home run ball or a foul ball. And I think that the MLB needs to step up and do something to fix this.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think they need to fix it as well.
Yeah. At least have like a clause, or if like it's just like obvious evidence that that like there's legitimate interference of like when the ball's in the mitt at least, and then it's like taken out. Like
Yeah,
that's like the definition of interference.
yeah,
You could have tackled him, and like what would they was that not interference? You're in my play, so it's like what you know like, and how is
yeah,
that fair to the player? He's trying to get the out, and the ball's coming towards you. You as a fan should be prepared. It says, hey, balls, like they make, announcements, hey, fans, be ready for balls coming fast, in the stands. Like this should be, I don't know. I feel like it should be about the player. I don't know. That's kind of, I think
Yeah.
that's my thoughts there.
And for me, like if I'm the fan, like I want to give the player space to make the catch, but I also got to defend myself. Like I'm not trying to get like smoked by this ball that's
Yeah.
incoming, and I don't think you're ever gonna fully solve these issues. I think there's always going to be a few incidents of this. Now, the one argument I would make is I think they could solve it for home run balls. Take out the first row of seats and put in flower boxes. I mean, they kind of did something like that at Comerica, and we've even seen how it can be a hazard
Mhm.
for a fan that reaches over and ends up falling over the wall. Or a tragic accident happened back in the
Yeah.
Josh Hamilton days when he was just throwing a souvenir to a fan and he tumbled over into the bullpen. Um, I think as a fan, you're always put at somewhat of a risk in that regard. I think the MLB could solve something as far as like eliminating the fan interference with home run balls. One that we didn't talk about, and I want to say that it was this past week too. It was a Guardians game, and they've got that really tall wall in left field, and a fan reached over and interfered with the ball. It was basically ruled like a ground rule double from what I saw, but it probably could have ended up as a triple and like maybe would have scored them another run. So like this is happening increasingly at this point. So yeah, you're never gonna fully solve it, but I think steps can be made towards some more specific rules for these very niche uh, sets of situations.
Yeah. Just to get the call right. I mean, yeah, that should be the goal.
yeah.
Well, good thoughts there. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to our first half of episode 5. But I think right now we're going to go ahead and take a break and let's hear from the upcoming segment's official sponsor.
Come on, Nava, stay patient here, stay disciplined.
Big pitch coming up here. 3-2 to the leadoff hitter.
All right, there we go, there we go.
Tying runners at first base here in the ninth.
All right, let's move him over here. Here we go, Punto.
7 against Rodney. Sutton is playing well in the third.
All right, there we go. Down the line. All right, that'll move him over. Here we go, Sox. Here we go, Sox. Come on now. All right, they're going to pinch hit Salty. Here we go. Stay hot, Salty. Come on now, Salty. Need you here, man. Need you here. Did he do it? Did he do it? Let's go, Salty. There we go. There we go. Walk off, Red Sox. Let's go. They're salted, they're roasted, and they're spicy. Frank's Red Hot Jumbo Seeds by David. Try them out today.
And welcome back, you fun-sized Twinkies. Thank you to our sponsor. And without further ado, how about we jump into some hot takes with Joe?
All right, well,
Alrighty.
I'm going to have to intro this actually here because The anticipation has been building up for a long time, and you can already hear a little fire crackling in the background. As a young accountant from Macomb, Michigan, his takes are definitely considered renowned across the globe, like the great Bambino's called shot in Game 3 of the 32 World Series. And at the end of this segment, Joe might be thinking to himself and alluding to the great CeeLo Green, does that make me crazy? Introducing the first ever segment of Joe's Red Hot Takes, sponsored by Frank's Red Hot Sunflower Seeds by David.
Thank you very much, sir. Alrighty, well, we're gonna jump right into it. I was sitting to myself today and I was like, what do I think is gonna happen this season? And quite honestly, a lot of different things. The first one being your Detroit Tigers are going to be a top 5 team this year in home runs. They've been hitting the ball well. They've been seeing good pitches. And I think a lot of guys on this team have that power potential. Spencer Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Greene. I think it's going to be a good year for the boys, and I'm saying top 5 in home runs this year for them.
I'm going to have to dispute that one right off the bat. I've seen some strong power early on from the Tigers this year. Obviously, the extra spark of Spencer Torkelson adding a ton of power compared to his tough year last year. We'll just leave it at that. I think he had 12 home runs. The Tigers are currently sitting at 7th right now in the league in home runs, but I just feel like they're not a power hitting team overall. I really like what Kerry Carpenter's done to start the year. He's hit a couple home runs against lefties, but I don't see them finishing in the top 5. Comerica Park is very difficult to hit home runs at, and with them sitting at 7th right now, it shows some promise, but at the same time, I think that the Tigers are the type of team that's really just going to manufacture runs in different ways, and it's not always going to be the home runs that are really carrying their offense.
Yeah, I love the optimism, Joe. I do, but I have to agree with Leo here. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we're wrong, but yeah.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I think we all hope you're right here, Joe. But probably very unluckily. But yeah, we're hoping.
Well, gentlemen, you are all wrong, and I'm the right one. The next hot take. 3 managers, count them 3, will be fired before the season is over. I don't necessarily have names of who those managers are, but I think there are a lot of teams that are underperforming right now. And I think I can see that carrying on throughout the season. A lot of fan bases are going to get upset. A lot of front offices are going to expect results, and it is going to cost three different managers to get fired this year.
Do we have any teams in mind right off the bat? Specific managers.
Right off the bat, I see the Rockies being one of those teams. They have not been a good team in a long time, and I don't see them getting any better. And I think quite possibly they're the worst team in the league. I think it would be good for them to get a shakeup, and quite possibly even the Pirates. But who knows?
Yeah, I can see the Pirates.
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned the Rockies. I just looked up who their manager is. Can anybody guess who the Rockies manager is right off the bat here?
Bud Black.
That was my guess.
Yep, and he's been their manager since 2017. His winning percentage is a clean .450, which I actually expected that to be a little bit lower. Yeah. It's just a tough team to manage based on their history there. 3 managers getting fired. I think this takes a little bit more reasonable than the first. I could see 2 to 3. 3 is it's a hot take. You're making Frank proud.
I I could see a happy low.
Yeah.
I know as far as the Orioles go, it's really early in the season, but a lot of fans are out for Brandon Hyde's blood already. So.
Well,
see.
conveniently enough, Carter, you have led me into my third take.
Oh.
As much as it pains me to say this, and I know it's going to pain you to hear it, the Orioles missed the playoffs this year. And not only do they miss the playoffs, they finished 4th in the AL East. They regressed extremely. I think they still have a lot of young talent. Their pitching is going to continue to fail them. I think there are going to be injuries that are going to happen that are really going to hurt their offense. And I still don't see Jackson Holliday being able to perform day in and day out at the major league level.
Right to my heart, man. That's tough. I guess I'll take the lead responding to this one. I gotta disagree with you there on the Jackson Holliday. I'm really hopeful he's gonna figure it out. I know, yeah, I mean, he was horrible this last week, getting like 0 hits and stuff. But I think by you know, the All-Star game and stuff, I think he might turn things around. I think he's just got a lot of adjusting to do, kind of what we saw from last season as well. But I'm hopeful Jackson Holliday sort of turns it around. I don't think he's going to be a top-tier caliber player like he was prospected to be, but I still think he'll be a valuable, you know, utility guy. Now, the Orioles making the playoffs currently, I might have to agree with you there. It's not looking good unless they make some trade moves, unless they get some pitchers. I agree. I don't think they're making the playoffs. It's looking really bad right now. Now that Eflin's, it's supposed to be a short-term IL, but since he's on the IL right now, it's just there's nothing there pitching wise. So yeah, Joe, you might be right on this this hot take here for the playoffs.
I think if the Orioles could get a DeLorean and go back in time and offer Corbin Burns a little bit more money, then this would be a different type of conversation. I think it is an interesting note, though, since we talked about contract extensions in last week's episode. Corbin Burns, it came out about a week ago now that the Orioles offered him $180 million for 4 years of service, so 45 AAV. That is a hefty contract. I mean, they didn't necessarily want to give him a quote-unquote long-term deal. But they were definitely willing to put up some big bucks for him, but I'm going to have to agree with Joe on this take here. With the hot start that the Blue Jays have had, and we'll get into that later in the episode as well, it's going to be really tough for the Orioles to not only make a playoff spot, but to finish in the top 3 within the hefty American League East.
Yeah, I just agree with most of you guys. I think it really depends on how. I mean, this is week 2 of the season, right? So a lot can happen, but I think it's going to come down to like what the front office wants to do. Like, are they willing to punt on this season, or are they willing to like push depending on how they are before the trade deadline? Like, they have the prospects to trade to go get the pitching if they really wanted to. So I feel like it's going to depend on like what's in front of them and if they're willing to wait another year or not.
Yeah, you nailed it on the head there, JD. It really comes down to the front office there. And yeah, if they get some pitchers, I think they can make the playoffs. But currently, you guys are all right. I don't think they're making the playoffs. I just had to do a little pushback though on the Jackson Holliday take. But I agree with the not making the playoffs.
After week 2, it's set in stone. It's happening.
Well, the next one I got for you, gentlemen. Kyle Tucker, killing it right now. Hitting baseballs left and right. Looking like one of the best guys in baseball. But after this year, he will not be a Cub. The Cubs will not be able to extend Kyle Tucker. But instead, the Philadelphia Phillies will offer him a contract and he will accept.
Is he only on 1 year?
Yes.
I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
wild.
He's considered a rental because they traded for him, knowing that they only had him for a guaranteed year. I'm going to have to disagree right off the bat with that take. The Cubs have reportedly been in discussion with Kyle Tucker on a deal upwards of $500 million from what I've seen. I think they're willing to shell out the money for him. He's gotten off to a really nice start for Chicago, looking like an MVP contender already. And Chicago really needs to cement a player for the sake of the fans, for the sake of that franchise. I mean, it's great what they did back in 2016, winning their first World Series in a very, very long time. But they weren't really able to extend anybody after that. Like Baez was gone, Rizzo gone, Bryant gone, like all within a few years. Those guys packed up their bags for different states, and they really need to cement their franchise guy. So I think the Cubs are going to be able to get it done, and I think they're going to get a deal done with him well before the All-Star break this season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's like the Cubs are, Chicago's a big market, and I feel like they need a guy like that, a guy like Tucker to, who's an MVP candidate, and it's what they should do, they should offer him that. And yeah, so I'd agree with Leo, but that'd be crazy if somehow Dabrowski pulls that out of his hat, signs another big deal. So I like the bold take there, Joe.
Well, there's a team that has gotten off to a bit of a slow start this year. Has not been a very good team in years past. This year, they're script. Your Oakland, Las Vegas Athletics make the playoffs.
Was my internet going bad, or was he glitching a little there?
Yeah, he was glitching a little bit there. His argument was that the Oakland Athletics, or the Las Vegas Athletics, whatever we call them these days, are going to make the playoffs despite getting off to a slow start.
Going into this season, I would have 100% agreed with you. I thought going into the season they were looking really strong, but I don't know, their sort of rankings starting out right now almost feel like a little bit of writing on the wall. So I guess that hope's been a little tampered for me there. But yeah, I thought that's the way it was going to go from spring training onward. But yeah, I'm not so sure now.
And crazier things have happened in the A's organization, if you think about it. I know there's one of Joe's Stash Drafts picks, Nick Kurtz, is balling out in the minors right now, and he's knocking on the door.
Yeah, he's going
Grossman
crazy.
does something, what's Jacob Wilson, Butler, O'Day. I'm missing someone else. So I feel like it would have to be on the offense to really show out, but that's a tough division too, and there's a lot of wild card contenders, so they'd have to really pull it off. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah, it's no shot on this one for me. I liked some of the pieces and moves that the A's made in the offseason, being able to extend why can't I think of his name? I just had it on the tip of my tongue. Brent Rooker. They extended Brent Rooker. They signed Luis Severino. Like, they finally are making some moves, which I like to see, but I still think they're a few years out from being able to really contend. And it's a strong division, actually, I think, in the West. Like, the Angels have been surprisingly pretty good to start the year. Like, at the end of the day, I just don't think that the A's are quite there yet. And I can definitely say that the reason I'm wearing this green jacket here tonight is not because of the Athletics colors.
But it could be. I think you support that playoff push,
Keep
man.
dreaming.
Really deep in there.
Keep dreaming.
No, I feel like JD highlighted that. It's kind of Joe's hot take there pretty well, though, highlighting those names that have kind of come up that are they're doing really good. Yeah, and their catcher too. I don't want to butcher his name, but Shea Langoliers, is that how you say it? I mean, I feel like he's an underrated catcher, and I like Jeffrey Springs on the Athletics too. I think he's an underrated pitcher as well. So I get the hot take. I get it.
All it takes is you being able to convince yourself. And last but not least, the best team in baseball. Who is it, boys?
Baltimore Orioles.
Wrong.
Do you want us to guess here?
Yes.
Who's going to be the best team in baseball, or who is the best team in baseball?
Who is the best team in baseball?
The Padres, right?
In terms of star power on their team, who would you say is the best?
Dodgers.
Dodgers.
There it is. There it is. The Dodgers get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs this year.
Nah. No way. That's an insane hot take.
Who knocks him out?
I don't know. I didn't think that far ahead.
I think that's such just some Dodgers hate seeping into that take there.
Who would you like to knock them out, Joe?
Ooh.
So you'd have to think we're talking past the wild card round because of they're winning the division.
Right.
They're right on to the division series. So you have to consider
They're first round of playoffs, not the first
right,
round.
right. No, 100%. But like you
Yeah.
have to consider who their opponent would be then. They would probably get a lower seed. I would project them to be the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're looking at them as the number 1 seed, which I think is most likely what is going to happen, you got to look at some of the weaker wild card teams. So I think you could see a team like the Brewers. I think the Brewers are not as strong as they've been in years past, but I think all it takes is a few games. Who's to say the Dodgers remain healthy all year? Who's to say that when it comes time for the playoffs, some of their younger guys don't perform? I mean, you've looked at guys like Snell, who can perform in the playoffs, or Yamamoto, who performed in the playoffs, Freddie Freeman. But I definitely think there are some names on that roster that will not perform when the lights are the brightest. And I will say that either the Brewers or the Phillies knock them out of the playoffs first round.
Now,
That'd
wouldn't
be
be
fun.
the craziest thing in the world. I mean, I think you maybe have to mix in a couple of injuries there too, but yeah, it could happen. It's just we're so far away from it, like it's almost difficult to consider rationally, but it's not like all of your takes have been rational anyway.
True.
We are beyond rational at this point.
Oh yeah, because the name of the segment, it's not Joe's rational takes. It's not Joe's lukewarm, boring takes. No. It's Joe's red hot takes.
Yeah, well, have you tried the
That's on the
seeds?
oven.
I have not tried the seeds yet. I haven't been able to find it.
No, they're red hot, they're spicy, and they're delicious.
Well, that's going to wrap it up for my segment, gentlemen. That is all the hot takes I had for my first installment of Joe's Red Hot Takes.
Solid hot takes there.
Golf clap.
I'll give you the green jacket for that performance. Well done. So this wasn't on the agenda for today, but we did have to throw this in. Walt, if you are listening, I'm sorry. It is Monday, April 14th, 2025. It is 9:30 p.m. And about a half hour ago or so, Tanner Houck finished his outing with a final line of 2 1/3, 10 hits, 11 earned runs, a strikeout, 2 walks, and 2 home runs for a solid negative 38.60. I wish that would have been against me last week when we were going head to head, but it is a tough start to the week for you there, Walt. So our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Poor Walt with your 900 points. How is he ever going to survive?
Yeah. Oh no, my heart is bleeding for him.
Number one
Hey,
ranked
I've been,
team.
I've been there.
but
Walt. I've been there.
Yeah, it happens.
I mean, I think by year's end, everybody is going to have a bad performance out of a pitcher.
Yeah.
Maybe not negative 38.
He beat Merril Kelly, so I'm happy about that.
I will have
Right.
multiple.
Was
Yeah,
That'd be
in
nice.
the dumper, man.
exactly.
We gotta, Yep. He beat Merril, so
Merril Kelly,
Yeah.
not the potential comeback player of the year.
what? That's he actually did have a good recent outing, so
Oh, did he really?
yeah. The stock market is up on Merril Kelly currently.
Blockbuster trade.
No tariffs on Kelly at this point.
Merril Kelly. Okay. I don't know about that, but
I don't know what's worse, the start of Merril Kelly's season or Joe's internet connection tonight.
I thought mine was bad.
Well, on
Joe
a
took
budget.
my Merril Kelly internet connection and gave it to Tanner Houck.
I think we need to up league dues next year so we can pay for a podcasting streaming service. But let's get into our final topic here. It's a round table style. It's like we're the knights at the round table, and I think if anybody was to be King Arthur in this group, it would be JD. And he happens to be at the top of the screen here. So let's give JD the first part of this section here. Early season surprises. What do you got, JD?
Yeah, so for me, I know I started off in our first episode talking about kind of doubting the Blue Jays, and so the Blue Jays have surprised me for sure. They've had like top 6 pitching in multiple categories: ERA, WHIP, batting average against. They locked up Vladdy. George Springer's looking good. Bichette is like second in hits in the league behind Kyle Tucker. So, they've shown some promise here. So if I'm a Blue Jays fan, I'm looking pretty right now. At least to start the first few weeks. It really just feels like previous season they just haven't been able to put it together down the stretch. So we'll see how this plays out, but they're looking pretty competitive so far.
Are we at all concerned just about their lack of power so far this year? They are actually bottom in the league right now with 9 home runs, tied with the Kansas City Royals and Colorado Rockies. Any concerns on potential power numbers overall?
That's a great question. I mean, I know Santander's gotten off to a really slow start, so he should be contributing to that. I'm sure Vladdy will pick it up, but I don't know how much it matters if their pitching stays where it's at. Like, that's how good they've been. So I don't know. That's a good point. We'll see how that plays out as well.
I've heard Santander's a slow start every year, so that should definitely pick up there.
Good for me. I'll take it.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next night of the round table, Carter.
All right. This is it. Not too much of a surprising take, but someone that's just, I want to talk about someone specifically that's just looked outstanding. And JD will like this one. I think he's on his team. I want to talk a little bit about Hunter Greene. I just wanted to pour praise a little on him. I mean, he's just looked absolutely fantastic. And going into the season, he was still, in the rankings really high, around like 25, 30. But in my opinion, so far from what we've seen from him, he is easily a top 10 pitcher right now in the MLB. And if he continues this, he's going to be a top 10 by the end. And he's just what's awesome. He has a .98 ERA currently, .58 WHIP. Almost had a shutout on fewer than 100 pitches against the Giants on April 7th. And I think he's just been really outstanding. Very little walks. Just really looked incredible. I think the only thing that might hold it back is injuries. He is throwing absolute heaters constantly at 100 miles per hour, which looks incredible, but I just hope that's sustainable for him, because I know he's already had Tommy John before in the past, had a little bit of a shoulder thing last year, but as long as this guy's healthy, in my opinion, easily top 10 pitcher the rest of the season. He's just looked phenomenal.
Yeah, I just tried to look back to an old text message thread. I don't know if I ever texted you officially, JD, but that was the guy that going into the season I had kind of on my radar. I'm like, could he be like a possible trade piece? Did we ever discuss Hunter Greene, or was that all just in my head?
We never discussed it. I think you asked me, like, are you looking to trade anybody? And I said no, not particularly at this point.
Yeah, I don't think I was willing to
Get
throw out
Hunter
any
Greene on the
names.
mind.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, I mean, thank
definitely on
God
my
you
mind.
didn't send that, because I would have been like, oh, maybe, but yeah, he's looked great. I think the big thing for him was control. Like, he'd walk a lot of guys last year, I remember, and so that seems to be a big difference for him. But yeah, Carter,
Yeah, huge.
hopefully he stays healthy and, keeps it up. So
Yeah,
yeah,
looking great.
it's a good one.
All right, I'll go next here. And for me, the surprise is the Abysmal Atlanta Braves, the 4-11 Atlanta Braves, a team that several folks on this call picked to win the NL East. Through 15 games, I saw that, JD. He said, not me. Through 15 games, 49 runs scored, second worst in the league behind the Rockies. Madelson's got to pick it up. I'm sure Carter would like him to pick it up. He's hitting 200 with a single home run. They're missing Ronald Acuna Jr., who's their leadoff guy, top of the lineup guy. They need that spark back. On the bright side, Spencer Schwellenbach of the Schwellenbach enthusiasts, Kyle, has been fantastic. He, in fact, leads the team in WAR and actually only has the only win for a starting pitcher for Atlanta at the moment. Chris Sale, the reigning NL Cy Young winner, leads the league in earned runs at the moment. Actually, Tanner Houck might lead the league. I'm not sure at this point, but when I did this research earlier today, on the plus side, you do have Spencer Strider coming back from injury, which should provide a little bit of a boost. And somehow Braves fans are excited about Alex Verdugo coming up, which I think is a little bit comical. I was scrolling through X earlier today, and the Braves fans are excited for Alex Verdugo being called up from AAA because they think he's going to provide a spark in that lineup. But the Braves have to turn it around, and they have to do so pretty soon.
Well, I think that the only reason they're excited about Verdugo is their team has been playing so piss poor lately that they're like, well, he can't play worse than we've been playing. Like, maybe on the off chance, Doogie comes back to his Red Sox form, then maybe. But I don't see it happening. But yeah, they've been pretty bad so far.
Our hero, Alex Verdugo.
Not gonna happen. This is not the right guy to get excited about. I have more hope in Jared Kelenic turning it around than Alex Verdugo coming back and actually being a productive bat in that lineup. So
I agree with that.
I feel for the Braves fans right now. They've poured a lot of money into that team, and I honestly, it's just a team that you want to see succeed.
For sure.
Our final night of the roundtable, Joe.
Yeah, we've touched upon it already a couple times today, but Kyle Tucker, I mean, leaving the Astros to join a team, a National League team in the Cubs that definitely needed you to step up in a big way. He's done just that. He has looked like the MVP with 5 homers on the year. He's hitting 324 right now. He's got 8 doubles. He's leading the league in runs. He's leading the league in hits. He's looks like a great player. He's already accumulated 1.1 WAR. If it's much of a shock or very surprising, because you knew he was a great hitter, but it's good to see him keep the walks up too. He's already got 15 on the year, so definitely love to see that out of a guy joining a new team and fighting for a potential long-term deal with a team such as the Philadelphia Phillies.
Man, I wonder who predicted him to be the MVP this year.
You know, I was
you,
racking my
Carter?
brain.
Carter, was that you?
No, I think mine was Jake Burger.
Hey, Carter was the only smart one.
I was the Burgermeister.
He still got 2 home runs, but
Just 2? Okay.
Carter was the only smart one in this group on the first episode to pick Shohei Ohtani as his MVP. So we can't dog on Carter too much for his Jake Burger prediction.
I already forgot who I picked, so
You picked Juan Soto.
yeah, he's doing all right.
Pretty slow start there.
Yeah, it's not great, but
Walks don't get you the MVP. Let's just say that.
touche.
Most valuable walker. MVP.
All right, gentlemen. Good roundtable segment there. The Knights of the Round Table will look to reconvene at a later time. With that, as we look to close out the episode, any last-minute thought-provoking statements or shout-outs? Let's start with JD.
Yeah, so big one. The Yeshiva University Maccabees and the Lehman University Lightning faced off earlier this week. And that's significant because Yeshiva had a 100-game losing streak and Lehman had a 42-game losing streak. And they both seemingly agreed to break each other's streaks. And so just congratulations to those 2 programs. And then also shout out to my White Sox. Mike Tauchman pulled his hammy route in 3rd as the go-ahead run against the Guardians this past week. Just inventing new ways to lose. 4-11. So hey, they just took out the Red Sox. They won that series, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, so shout out to Mike Tauchman. Hopefully he's okay. I haven't checked in on him, but
Tough break.
yeah.
I'd like to give a shout out to Joe for making his stash ad of Jacob Wilson. That is league history right there, as Roki Sasaki was the first player moved from the stash to an active roster. That was preseason. Joe becomes the first team to add somebody from his stash during the regular season. And if you're listening and you're in this league, if you've got a guy that's on your stash, reach out to League Commissioner John, and he will get that player added for you, and he'll make sure that that transaction does not count against you. So I like the move there, Joe. I know I've given you some crap this episode for some of your hot takes, but had to give you at least one pat on the back, but I'll turn it right back against you. I would like to shout out one of our new listeners. That's Megan, Joe's girlfriend. And I'd like to shout her out because Megan attended the Tigers versus Yankees game last week on Tuesday and has seen the Tigers more in person this year than Joe has.
Wow.
Wow, Joe. How dare you?
When somebody doesn't get
You're not even a real fan.
When somebody doesn't get an invite to the game, it kind of hurts, but I'm not upset.
Tax season.
Oh man, too good. And then I do have to shout out Rory McIlroy. I mean, the dude made a grown man tear up and made a lot of grown adults tear up with his completion of the Grand Slam on Sunday. I watched a lot of the Masters, and that was just awesome to see. I know it's not baseball related, but go sports.
Rory.
Well, for my shout outs, I'm going to throw it back to what JD had just recently said. Shout out to tax season for being over. Tax season officially ends tomorrow. April 15th is tax day, so shout out to that. My second shout out is going to be to this podcast. We've made it 5 weeks, boys. 5 weeks strong. Let's see how many more weeks we can make it. And then my final shout out is going to be to Spencer Torkelson for completely turning his career around so far. So shout out, Mr. Torque.
Don't jinx it, Joe.
I love the torch shout out.
Yeah.
That shout out's for your dad.
If Bob's tuning in.
Bob's can probably hear you from upstairs
Yeah.
right now.
he's proud of you right now.
He heard me say Torque. His ears went up.
Yeah.
All right, Carter. Any special shout outs or thought provoking statements?
Oh shoot. I don't really have any shout outs. I guess shout out to Carrie for hitting that bomb tonight. Just 20 or so minutes ago. Shout out to him.
Hey, Bonds.
Gary Bonds, baby. Well, all right, gentlemen. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Be sure, everyone, to tune in to next week's episode, which will drop on Tuesday, and be on the lookout for another round of Leo's Trivial Pursuit, sponsored by Baggage. But in the meantime, thank you to everyone for tuning in, and never stop chasing your little big league dreams.